Hi, welcome. Oh, thank you for joining me. Debz Cooper, global stressologist, here to talk about being responsible for your life. I really appreciate you joining me today. Thank you. So let me know if you are here live or if you are here. Oh, what happened just then? What? Yeah, there we go. Let me know if you're here live. Let me know if you're here watching a replay, and where you are around the world would be awesome. Thank you. It's perfect. Thank you. So, as I can hear the dogs having a good old go, being responsible for your life. Oh my gosh, this has been a cracker of a one for me this week of taking accountability and being responsible. So first I want to talk about when I went into the dictionary to look about what responsible means, it came up with a couple of little doozies, and one of them, just give me a minute, let me put this here. One of them actually said responsibility is having an obligation to do something or having control over or care for someone as part of one's job. So having an obligation, which is a really heavy word for people, obligation to do something or having control over or care for someone. And the example it gave, it said the cabinet minister is responsible for education. But that word obligation really challenged me, because when you're doing things by obligation, you're doing things to please the other person, which we want to do that, clearly. But hi, beautiful Carolina. Hi, from Melbourne. Thank you for joining me. We want to be responsible for ourselves, but also we don't want to be doing it to fulfill others' journey. This is about our journey, and when we're fulfilled, others actually join us, but we're not doing it necessarily for them. So when you think about this, one of the other things it said was being the primary cause of something, and so able to be blamed or credited for. That was an interesting one, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit further down the track, because there's definitely that praise and reprimand when you are responsible for anything you say or do, what comes out your mouth, or the actions you portray. So there's a thing I used to say to people: I just don't want to be an adult. I just don't want to be an adult today. And I'm sure there's moments you yourself feel like that. Oh, if only I was a kid, I'd have it so easy. If only I was younger, I just wouldn't have to worry about all these things that are going on. And I understand that, because clearly some days you just don't want to be responsible for anything, and that's okay. And even if you're the Prime Minister or the King or Queen or anything, that's okay, because you've got people who can help you. But most of the time, you actually have to be responsible. You can park things, definitely, but there is a level of responsibility that you have to partake, and it's have to partake. So when we talked about being the primary cause of something so you can be blamed or credited for, responsibility, I say, can come with a win or a loss. We know that. So people can respect you for being transparent and open and honest, yet they can also disrespect you for those things. We know there's times when you've said things, that people have respected what you've said, but they've also disrespected what you've said. We know that people value your opinion. There'll be moments people value your opinion. It may not be the ones that you think value your opinion, but there's people who value your opinion, yet there's people who dislike hearing what you have to say. There's people who enjoy listening to me, and then there's people who just can't stand listening to me. And you've got to know that's okay. You can't please everyone, and it's not about pleasing everybody. It's about feeding your own soul and pleasing your own soul to get ahead in this world. And it's not about get ahead and be an a-hole. It's actually just to function and get ahead in where you are. So it goes both ways. Also, because you respect others for speaking up, yet you can also disrespect them for speaking up. I know recently someone asked me what I was thinking, and I gave my opinion, and I don't think they had any idea what was coming. And I spoke freely, thinking, okay, they want to know what's going on, and I said it. And the shock that came from that was, oh, they weren't quite prepared. They're definitely not on the same wavelength as me. And that's okay. That's okay. So when we do about this, just know that it can happen to you as it can happen to others. So they also say that when one door closes, another opens. And we know that. We say when one door closes, another one opens. Yet you don't know when the other door is going to open and to what. We understand that. And that's even more frustrating. You know, people say every dog has their day, but you want to see that dog. Karma's going to get them, and we actually want to see them have that karma. We know that. That's human nature. But you don't know what's around the corner. So when we think about one door closes, another one opens, the same applies here. So responsibility has a door slam, yet can open the door for you. So it can slam on you, yet it can also open for you. So think of those times you've been responsible in your life and how it's affected yourself and others. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some tips on how to be responsible. Now, these are my tips, but you have to know that each scenario can be different. And when I talk about each scenario can be different, today somebody may say something to you and you want to be responsible and you're going to be responsible and you speak up, or your actions or words are in alignment with that responsibility. Yet 3 hours down the track, somebody may ask you the same question or the same scenario and you actually don't want to be responsible and you just want to park it. So just be aware that each scenario can be different. So the scenario can be the same, but the time frame of whatever's going on in your world, if there's people around you, you may not necessarily want to say things. If there's something going on here, you may not necessarily want to say it right there and then. So it just depends. So don't take yourself on the assumption that this happened yesterday, so I have to do it this way, exactly the same way again. Be flexible. And we all know with 2020, that has made us become way more flexible than we've ever wanted to be, some of us. Responsible. So when people confront you, and it's up to you to take responsibility, fess up. And when I say fess up, it means speaking your mind. So fess up. I don't even know if I just grew up on the word fess. I've never even Googled it. But fess up. Speak your mind. Speak your truth. But like I said before, if you don't want to do it publicly, tell them you'll talk to them privately. When you feel comfortable and when it feels like there's a safe space. You might have a camera in front of you and someone wants to ask you a question and you don't want to answer it. Then say, I have to think about that. Use whatever reason you want. That's a great question. Let me think about that. If you really want to think about how to word it, that's going to be best for those who are going to be listening to this. If your cousins asked you a question and you just don't know how to say it because you don't know if your auntie or uncle's on board or anything like that, then just be a little bit transparent to say, that's a great question, let me come back to you on that. So don't feel like you have to answer there and then. This is up to you to do what's best for you when you feel comfortable most about it. So, but you must give them a time frame. And when I say give them a time frame, let them know, hey, I'll come back to you later today, or I'll come back to you tonight, or just I've just got to do this one task and then I'll come back to you. If you don't want to say, I'm going to talk to you now. You have to give them a time frame, because if you don't give them a time frame, and it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be 1 hour, 60 minutes, 30 minutes or whatever, just say, I'll come back to you later today. If you don't give them a time frame, their minds are going to wander. And you know for yourself, if you ask a question and people don't answer straight away, you go into insane scenarios with your head. And you start escalating and escalating and escalating of something that could be just so simple to answer in your mind, but that other person that's thrown them into a spin. So when you feel comfortable, talk to them. Talk to them. You've also got to be aware it has to be when you feel comfortable. Also got to be aware that it's important to hear their view. And when I talk about hear their view, hear their side of the story. I'm not saying you have to agree with what they're saying. Definitely you don't have to agree. But what I'm saying is hear their side. Put yourself in their shoes and see what's going on. Even though you may not know fully what's going on, but put yourself in their shoes and just hear what they have to say, because that might take you a little bit to a humble place to go, gosh, I hadn't thought about it like that. Now it's going to make me react very differently. I'm not saying take on their stuff. I'm just saying hear what they have to say. And yeah, put yourself in their shoes. And so when I think about being responsible for your life, this week's been a fun one for me. We had a house sitter come in house sit while we were away. And I'm still a little bit perplexed on it. And I have to giggle because I was even talking about it this morning with somebody. And we put the Manchester on the line, you know, the sheets, the towels, the things on the line. And we're away for 6 days. And when I came home, they were still on the line. And I couldn't understand for the life of me why they're still on the line. I just would have thought the house sitter would have seen that they're on the line and taken them off. And I thought that's a pretty simple thing. I think most people would do that. Only when I started moaning and moaning and moaning about it, I realized it was actually really challenging me. And I started writing these notes about being responsible for your life. I realized I was purely responsible for that scenario because I think people think like me. They don't. They think in their own way. Because I didn't tell them to bring them in. I didn't say, can you bring the sheets in? Can you bring the towels in? I didn't say that. So really, that responsibility lies on me because I didn't tell them that I'd love them to bring them in. So then they had to get washed, and I was peeved off. They had to get washed again, and then they've got to be dried again. It was just extra work that I didn't feel I needed to do. But being responsible for your life, I then went, I actually didn't say that to them. I didn't say. It's as simple as that. So here I am getting frazzled because, and I kept repeating the story over and over in the last 24 hours, because they didn't do something that I didn't ask them. If I don't ask them, how are they going to know? Nobody can read your mind. So that's a level of taking responsibility for your world. And it's quite simple, really. It will stop the frustrating parts that come into play. It'll stop that chaos that's going on. You know, when I found out I was pregnant, I was responsible for that. Not the other person, clearly not. I was actually responsible. They're responsible for their part, yes, but that's their choices, their life, whatever. But I'm responsible for that. If you have got yourself into a financial situation and you've got dramas happening all around you, you're responsible for that. It's not the other person. That's purely you. You cannot blame. You cannot point your fingers. That is all about you. And you know how it's talked about people saying they're going to like to hear what you have to say and not like to hear what you say? You may not like to be hearing that right now, but you know it's the truth. You may not want to hear it. I'm going to repeat that again, but it's the truth. If you don't like your work colleagues, this is a great one. You're responsible. Do something about it. There's things that you can do about that. This is all about you. There's a program on TV, and I don't know what it is, but it's something about I blame the parents for my body. And it's an interesting one because they're blaming they're a little bit out of shape, and now they're blaming the parents for how they fed them certain kinds of food, etc., growing up. You know, it's an interesting one because actually it's not the parents who are responsible for them. It's actually the children or the young teens or the adults or whatever. It's you're responsible for what goes in your mouth. You're responsible for your exercise. You're responsible for your life. Like I said, you may not want to hear that, but it's actually down to you. Just because people cook you food, it's up to you to do that. If you want to eat that food, eat that food. If you don't want to eat that food, don't eat that food. But you are responsible for you. And that's the main thing to remember all through about this. And I'm going to say the last thing I'm going to say here is if you have somebody who's responsible to their life, that's super sexy. That's super sexy, amazing, inspiring, freaking cool. And people want to be around those people who are inspired. So when you're responsible for your life, your world completely can change. So I want to thank you for joining me today. Debz Cooper, Global Stressologist, signing off for the day. Thank you for allowing me to be responsible for my Facebook Live, for my video, and for you joining here today. Thank you. That is me, over and out. I will see you next week. Thanks.